Hey, everybody, what is going on? I know it has been a long time, right? Welcome back to We Are Listening. For those who have been here before, if this is your first time listening, welcome to We Are Listening. Whether you are watching us live now, watching later on La Jolla Playhouse or San Diego Repertory Theater's YouTube page, or whether you are listening to us on our podcast on Spotify and Anchor, thank you for joining us. Again, this is We Are Listening. We Are Listening is produced by San Diego Repertory Theatre in partnership with the La Jolla Playhouse and the Old Globe. And this is an online salon that centers Blackness and the experiences of those in the performing arts and theater world who, in whatever shape or form, identify as Black or African American. We share our experiences. We celebrate where we are and where we've been in this industry. And as I always say to you, we are not the other. We are the standard. We've been here from the beginning. Got a spectacular guest coming up tonight. Also, got a surprise for you. Not a surprise, we've been advertising it, but I also have a special co-host tonight, filling in for Jacole Kitchen, is off doing, all that theater stuff that she does. Really quickly, before we get into our discussion tonight, please let me read our land acknowledgement to you, and let me share my screen here. You can find this at sdrep.org/acknowledgement. San Diego Rep would like to acknowledge that the Lyceum Theater is built on the traditional lands of the Ipai Tipai Kumeyaay Nation, translated as the people who overlook the ocean from the cliffs. We also want to recognize their neighbors in the region, the Payapkawichum, the Kawiha, and the Capeno. San Diego Rep honors the over 20,000 current tribal members living in our area and elevates local elders, past, present, and future. We respectfully acknowledge these community members and their tremendous contributions to our region and thank them for their continued stewardship. You can read more of our land acknowledgement again at sdrep.org acknowledgement, and also take a look at this beautiful historical map that was drawn by Paul Cannon. A couple of quick announcements. I don't want to take too much time tonight. Just want to remind you again, We Are Listening is produced by San Diego Repertory Theatre in partnership with La Jolla Playhouse and the Old Globe. Want to invite you to head on over to lajollaplayhouse.org. Your next upcoming performance is Lampica. They just wrapped up the WOW Festival out of Liberty Station yesterday. Also would like you to head on over to the oldglobe.org, as they have a Freestyle Love Supreme coming up on June 21st, July 10th. They just wrapped up a Black Lady sketch show, who my co-host happened to be in last night at the Old Globe. She might talk a little bit about that. So please, again, make sure you head on over to the lajollaplayhouse.org, the oldglobe.org, and head on over to sdrep.org. Coming up in May, at the end of May 26th through June 19th, is In Every Generation, kind of a kickoff for our Jewish Arts Festival, directed by Todd Salovey and Emily Muller. So please go ahead and check out all of our websites. And don't forget, this episode and all of our episodes, not only available on our YouTube pages, but also available on Spotify. We Are Listening podcast. You can find it right now on Spotify and on Anchor. And I'll make sure I get that expanded to Apple Podcasts and some other podcast platforms as well. Now, like I said, Jacole is off doing theater things. So tonight, joining us is our special co-host. She works with me here at San Diego Rep, and you can find her all around town doing all kinds of theater things. As you know, we never know when to sleep, and we don't know how to say no. Please welcome our community engagement and partnerships manager here at San Diego Repertory Theatre, Kandace Crystal. What's up, Candace?
Hi, Ahmed. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I was cracking up backstage.
For sure. Like we got a really spectacular guest coming up tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Get into it and have a real conversation. And again, like I was telling everybody, you were at the Black Lady sketch show last night at at the Old Globe. How did that go?
It was lovely. It was an awesome opportunity to work with the Black Artists Collective and beautiful Black queens in this industry who really don't get uplifted enough. So I'm grateful to the Old Globe for providing that space for us, and special shout out to Joy Jones for really and truly putting it all together and making it happen, to Carla Banu de Jesus, our fearless director, and Miss J Hawk, our stage manager. Couldn't have done it without all of you.
Well, congratulations on that performance. And like everybody, if you all do not know Kandace, you will probably see her at every theater in town at some point while you're going around doing stuff there in San Diego. Thank you, hey, and thank you, Kandace, for doing this tonight and showing out with me and having a conversation with our spectacular guests who we're going to introduce right now. This is going to be a real interesting conversation. As you know, we always center Blackness. We're always talking about what we do in this industry, who we are, because for some reason, even though it seems like it's a given, a lot of people don't know we're here, don't know what we are, don't know the diversity of what we do, and don't know the impact of what we do in this industry. And so we are continuing in that vein tonight. Please welcome. We're going to get into everything that she does. I'm just going to give you a brief synopsis, and that'll be enough, and we'll get into it. She is an actor, a writer, a director. And when I say a director, I'm not just talking about plays. I'm talking about film. I'm talking about she is all over all the genres, doing all the things. Please give a hearty "We Are Listening" welcome to Rebecca Smaga Frank. Hey, Rebecca.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm good. I'm pleased to be in this space. Thank you for inviting me into your we space, into this Black space. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for coming.
Well.
And like we say, to every guest, like anybody can read a bio, but we really like to get personal, really like our guests to kind of talk to our listeners and give us your own synopsis of kind of how you got into this industry, what got you here to where we are today. So the floor is yours. Let us know a little bit about yourself and how you got here.
Yeah. Well, it's a great opportunity to kind of walk down my own memory lane and with a particularly Black lens, which is what will bring me most joy, I think. I grew up in Santa Monica, California. That's where I am from. And my people are from Swaziland, now known as the Kingdom of Eswatini. That's where my Baba is from. And my mom, and on our side, are white Ashkenazi Jews. So holding all of that intersectionality. And I started as a writer. I was in Oakland, where I went to undergrad, and really a poet, a writer of many things, and was in a vocal jazz improv. So there's going to be some noise, but life is happening. And I was in a vocal jazz improv ensemble in Oakland, and it led me very, very naturally to a play, which I was an adult. I'd never been in a play. I'd never acted. And through this jazz connection, I ended up singing in a Marcus Gardley play, who's now one of our great playwrights. He basically wrote me into the play. I was there as a singer and wrote me into the play. And I was surrounded with some of the best actresses in the Bay Area. And it just set me off. It set me off on a theater journey. And I think I did maybe 10 productions in that next 2 years in the Bay Area, one of which was at the African American Shakespeare Company, where I played Olivia in Twelfth Night with a fully Black cast. We also had live music from the great jazz bassist Marcus Shelby. Just really some beautiful experiences in the Bay Area. One of the next most influential was being in Intimate Apparel. Lynn Nottage, whose influence on me, I mean, as a Black Jew, but just as a human and as an actor, I just can't say enough about that experience. And I think it triggered something, which was, I would like to study this, right? I sort of found my way, I'm sort of joke about being kind of Forrest Gump, just found myself, tripped and fell and landed in the middle of the theater. And then I was like, oh, let me study this. And it took me to New York. It took me to NYU grad acting, which is a fabulous program, conservatory program, 3 years, just dedicating your life to the fifth floor. And when that experience ended, I could talk more about that, but when that experience ended, I stayed in New York and started working in New York theater and regional theater. And one of the best experiences on my journey there was I wasn't booking things right away. It was just kind of spit out of grad school in New York, very, very challenging kind of space. And I ended up assistant directing, which I had done once before for Patricia McGregor in the Bay Area on Spunk, so with Zora Neale Hurston's play. But this time it was in New York. It was at New York Theater Workshop, and it was on a Nat Turner play by Nathan Allen Davis, Nat Turner in Jerusalem. And I tell you, I'd never felt Blacker in the theater than watching day after day after day this beautiful piece come to life with basically the words of Nat Turner through Nathan Allen Davis. And it was the distance. It was from a directorial view that really just reignited my love of theater and my Blackness in theater. And I booked a show right after that. And so I've been doing kind of regional off-Broadway theater since then. I've returned to my writing. I have a very active writing life now. And yeah, that's a little bit of my journey. I'm in a play right now at Lincoln Center, LZT3, which is called At the Wedding. So we do all kinds of things. We're everywhere. And that's a little how I got here.
Just tripped and fell. Just one good time.
That's right. It's like where he's running with the ball, and then all of a sudden,
yeah. Y'all on the ground in it now. Yeah. Now you got to do it. Oh man, Rebecca, that's an amazing story. So, I want to take it back a little bit to being a jazz singer, improver, and falling into this theater world and working with such incredible people like Patricia McGregor. We know her; she's a good friend over here. So, hearing about that is just. Wow. Tell us a little bit about what it was like being young in this industry and like the first time you really felt like you saw someone who looked like you on stage.
Oh, that's a really, really good question. I was thinking about that before we started, just about representation and how much that's a big part of my story. Part of it is that I've never seen myself, right? Part of that has to do with being the only. I'm my mom and my Baba's only kid. There are not, a bunch of Swazi Jewish Black American people out there. I'm 6 feet tall, right? There was a lot that I just couldn't see out there. But I would get pieces, like little pieces, right? Like as a kid, Sister Act 2 or whatever, just wherever you feel seen, you're just gonna like hold on to it, right? And you're like, oh, so-and-so's a Black Jew too, just kind of culling all these pieces together. But the theater, it makes a lot of sense why I continued with it. It took me as I am, which is not everybody's story. I was singing jazz. I was invited to be in this process. I came into rehearsal one day and Marcus was like, you kind of look like Cleopatra. I was wearing like winged eyes or something. And the next day it was like Cleo Rumbrill walks into the shipyard. It was a play about the Black and Latina Rosie the Riveters, like that in the Richmond shipyards, which he's from Richmond. Anyway, I was very lucky that though I didn't see myself, I got to step in to myself as myself, right? I had no experience, so I couldn't really pretend like I knew. I was greener than green, fresher than fresh. Like they just invited me as me. So I was incredibly lucky. And I think that speaks to the Bay Area as well, which is there are so many theaters, so many theaters. So a lot of opportunities to really like learn by doing. What else do I want to say about that? There's also, speaking to your question about youngness, like just saying yes, right? I had no other plans. I wasn't busy doing other things. So I was able to just step in and say, great, let's try this. Which is also why I ended up assistant directing for Patricia, which was like, oh, okay, I'm going to go to NYU, but I have this summer. Let's say yes to this Spunk experience, right? And then getting so much from watching Margot Hall and Don Troop and all of these, amazing actors and musicians do their thing, Aljo Billingsley do their thing and feel like, oh, I'm a part of this Black theater community. I'm a part of this legacy all of a sudden. And, they accept me as me. So I see a little bit of myself in everybody, but, it's hard to see yourself really like fully represented. It's a challenge.
Yeah, that's that pieces statement is really sticking with me because I realize how so many of our Black youth have not necessarily gotten to have that experience of seeing themselves on a stage, but they've
Mm-hmm.
had the experience of those pieces as well. So I
Mm-hmm.
wonder on how we can better serve our youth by making that picture a bit more whole for them coming out of these programs, right? Or even if it's one of
Yes.
those like traveling to schools and doing a show and they're like, oh, there's a Black Olivia. There's a Black Olivia, right? Like having that realization is so, so important.
Yeah. And you're right, right? There's influences that I'm not naming too, just from
Mm-hmm.
being a young person and remembering like, oh, when the high school came to the middle school and,
Mm.
this mixed girl was in the lead and she was fierce. Like she was wearing like fur and like little shorts. And I was like, oh, that, right? Just like permission,
Yeah.
permission. Um, but also it's part of what motivates me, speaking to the youth, like why I'm out there now. I did a show called Indecent at Oregon Shakespeare Festival, and this young man came up to me after, and he was just like beaming, and he was like, I'm a brown Jew too. And he had this whole moment. It's so much about intersectionality that's like just missed, right? Like it was the first show I was ever cast in, Jewish show I was cast in, because of all the racism of there aren't Black Jews. It's like insane. But we're out here, and and we've always been here. And so this young man just came up and just was like, I'm that too. I'm that too. He had never seen himself represented. So I mean, it feels worth it, the impact.
Can you expand on that a little bit, because you
Mm-hmm.
know this is something that as a kid I knew about. It took me a while to understand it, but even if I look back as a kid at entertainers, like I remember the moment, a seminal moment was with Sammy Davis Jr. And
Mm.
a lot of people didn't know that he was Jewish. And on top of that, he was always getting flack because he ran with the Rat Pack. And so people were like, didn't think he was quote unquote really Black until that seminal moment, like at the Hollywood Bowl, when he just had to set the crowd
That
straight.
moment, yeah.
Yeah, that minute where he had to be like, look, I'm tired of all y'all saying what I'm not and what I am. But,
Yeah.
it's something that I think is important, not only for people who don't identify as Black, but especially with those who do, to understand, Blacks who are Jewish or identify as Jewish in one way or another. Can you expound on that a little bit, or maybe as far as what you've experienced with that in theater, whether good or bad?
Yeah. It's a major part of my journey, which is to be as whole as possible on stage. I mean, off stage first and then on stage. So, right, sometimes the tendency, the push to just try to assimilate. And that also is into a small black box, right? The Black character needs to sound like this, right? No, I'm not going to perform Blackness. That's part of the problem. Oh, Black people can only sound or be or act or wear these particular things. No. What's been harder is to come with all of me to every piece, which you kind of can't do anyway. It's like you have to make it smaller. But if you just being my full self, I'm going to come with all of that. And then letting the piece and my contribution be all the more just complex and dimensional and diasporic, right? Nobody's like one thing anyway. And it's also so important for me to be, it's just important for me to be Black, and it's important for me to be Jewish, and it's important for me to be Swazi, and it's important for me, it's like every part of me. So that's what I think was so unique, speaking to your question, about the Indecent experience, which was, oh, I'm not now assimilating into being Jewish. I can't ever hide, nor would I ever want to. But now these people are going to see in the most Jewish of plays. I mean, we're singing in Yiddish, we're dancing, doing all this stuff. I'm speaking, like Eastern European accent. They're going to see a Black Jew. They're going to see a Black person. And the best part was I wasn't alone. That's the main thing for me, is don't make me the only, right? Don't divorce me from my community. Otherwise, then it becomes problematic. What I had was my Black Jewish brother, Bill Demerit, who was also, he played the writer in that play. And I played one of the leads. So we were out there, right? Just fully radically present, the way that my body is just radical on stage. That's, for me, it has the political weight. And in the context of something that some people have never seen before, right? The whole range. People like, I didn't know there were Black Jews. Or, oh, I didn't even think about that. It didn't even occur to me. That full range, and that young man, right, who saw himself. So it's turning into a beautiful journey. It's definitely a process to try to remain whole and not, make myself smaller when we have so much. We're so complex.
Ooh, you are speaking all the truth today, Rebecca. My word. I'm like, she keeps saying quotables. I want to write them all down. I'll just rewatch it. It's fine. So you're talking about intersectionality and bringing your whole self to these pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one thing I think as Black artists, we often have that discussion around is, can I be too Black for a role? Well, how does that exist, right? Can you separate those two parts of yourself in order to fulfill a role? So what are your thoughts on that?
I think I want to ask for more clarity on your question, because I know it's good. Were you saying about the, like, I understand, like, the idea of, like, maybe being too performing Blackness, or like, can I be too Black? But the second part you were saying was what?
So this whole conversation about, like, divorcing your Jewish side, right, from your Blackness, how does that work? Could that even be possible? Is that something that exists, or is it something where, let's say you're approaching a role where it is specifically a Black character and there's no conversation about the religion? How does that work? Especially because so many of those characters are rooted in, like, Southern characters, for example. They often have those, like, we praise the Lord and all of that. And I know that's a conversation I had with so many of my friends, and now it's coming up as we talk about whether you are born Jewish, or if you are converting, or if you are raised in that household, and how that deeply changes your view on things as a Black person as well.
Yes. Great. Thank you for elaborating.
Anytime.
Yes. No, I definitely mean to bring my wholeness as an artist, right? Not to impose on the character. The character is what the character is, and it's my job, it's my craft, really, to bring the truth of that character to life, right? Which is one of my favorite things to do, which is to disappear actually into the character, whatever it may be. But I bring myself as an artist, and what I think is sort of my bigger misconception as a younger person was that it was all about the product at the end that we were making. But now I know it's about process. It's always about process. So the conversations that we're having in the room, right? You may not see some of those on stage, but they're embedded into the work. So feeling, again, whole in the room, and being able to play, a Black character from the South that's Christian to, whatever range of humanity I'm asked to play or have the privilege of playing. I only mean also, and I also mean that there is more of a tendency to put me in a box based on how I look, and I was excluded from a part of my own heritage that I have access to because of racism, anti-Black racism, well, and more. But so that was such a unique opportunity to disrupt that white supremacy in theater, specifically on stage. We're here. We've always been here. But one of my favorite types of theater, which was really part of the NYU model, is documentary theater. So the thing that we studied, very, very, like, one of the things that we studied most was how to listen and how to put another human in our body, in our voice, in our body, just playing real people. And that's the thing. It's like, if you have a play that's representing people other than white people, then you have an opportunity to bring those people into that space. But but that's one of my favorite things to do. The character work.
I want to talk to you a little bit about the skill sets, the broadness of I'm looking at your website. I'm going to put it up for everybody, but I just want to kind of get like just how did you get into so many different lanes, the acting, the writing, the directing, and like I could ask this to Kandace too right now on on the call, but you're doing film, all these things. Can you kind of give us like did you set out to do this, to do all these things, or was this just something you're in this realm and then this opportunity came up and you went here and then you had a gift for here? Can you kind of give us a rundown on how you got such a broad skill set and range of experience?
Yeah, I really do think that, speaking more in spiritual terms, that there are things that want to be created that I get to be the vessel for, right? That want to come out through me, and those all have different forms. And I did start with writing as a primary form, and it was my there's my little website. Um, it was the thing that I started with. But I find that these things very, very naturally lead to other things. So I was writing basically a novel. I was like writing a novel about my experience in Swaziland with my father. And then because I sang and was in this play in Berkeley, that story came back to me as a play. So only just by being in the theater did it influence the content that I was writing and change the structure of it. Then, going from a Shakespeare play to a Lynn Nottage play, right? Everything started to inform my directing mind, right? Like how people were approaching the work, being in the room, seeing how that works. So that led me pretty naturally there, just being available and wanting to do that. And then the film stuff came a little bit through Mills College as well, just taking experimental film classes and realizing that, if you have this like sort of very active imagination and this visual eye, like you can just channel that and trust that whatever you're making is art. And that's pretty helpful to get started, just messing around with like pointing and shooting. Like what do I find interesting? A director's just pointing your eye saying, look here, this is interesting. So whether that's on stage or with a camera, that's what I do. I keep it pretty simple. And then same with music, right? I came up with a vocal jazz improv ensemble that sang like Bobby McFerrin's Voicestra or like Sweet Honey in the Rock, like very soulful jazz, lots of like female voices, vocal percussion. And I find that that's one of my languages now. I can speak it. So I make things on GarageBand and I make tracks to my own film or whatever through that language that I love and that I speak. So again, I think it's just coming through, channeling what wants to come through in the language that feels most authentic, and then just being willing to try new things. And being in community helps. Now I have a very, very great friend who was supporting my writing by sending it to people, especially in Jewish spaces, which was great. He's like, people need to be reading this, and it was like he was like my agent, and that's what got sort of the writing stuff going. And now it's like, I'll be asked to commission a new psalm, right? So in like a very traditionally white Jewish space, it's like they're like, can you write this psalm for us that used to just be Psalm 29 as a psalm for racial justice? I'm like, yes, I can. Yes. Or like, they're like, how should we approach Juneteenth? Well, try this. It's like very, just saying yes, like, oh yes, I can contribute to that. I can contribute to that. Or, Rosh Hashanah is coming up, is about the new year. And it's like, let me tell you about what maybe you need to atone for, right? Like just, again, through a Black lens, through my intersectional lens. Yeah.
Is there a favorite? Are you developing? Is there a favorite? Is there one that you're looking at and you're like, I think I'm going to end up doing this right here? Is the one that you're leaning towards as you keep moving forward?
Yes, actually, I write very well for myself, and so I write a lot of monologues. or like essays, and then maybe I'll, be asked to read them or speak them in an event. The thing that I'm most excited about next is screenwriting that I'm, been slowly working on. And I don't have to be in all those projects, but the bringing together some of my greatest, the people that I look up to most, the Michaela Coles and the Issa Raes and all of these people who have been able to be radically themselves with their writing voice and their body, their acting voice, and their creative, directorial minds as well, clearly. So yeah, I'm looking forward to merging them, and yeah, I'd say that's the thing I'm most excited about.
I love that you brought up Michaela Cole, because I'm not sure if everyone out there in the world is aware of what happened with her and Netflix. But she said no. She chose to say no when they were trying to take away her artistic power. And have you ever found yourself in a situation where you had to say no, and for the integrity of your own work? And what came of that? And you don't have to name drop anywhere if you don't want to. Just curious.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm still working through a lot of like regret, like moments that I regret, where maybe I should have said no. But what I'm kind of growing into, and I have the help of my Black sister who is a self-identified witch, and she's just too wise. She will help me out when I need it, which is in those situations. I'm going to speak very broadly of being in very, very white spaces of white theater, white writer, white director, like white cast. And again, just hitting this wall, being like, again, right? Like I'm having this issue with like hair again, or I'm having this extreme feeling of like isolation again, or, oh, I feel like I'm not doing enough again, or, oh, I'm worried about like, are we taking care of Black audiences? And where are they, by the way, again? Just like when I would hit walls and feel like, oh, I shouldn't have done this. That actually my sister Sanyu is kind of helping me, being like, in any situation, like any job, you're going to run into that. Like, it's not unique to just this arena. And I had to kind of pause and be like, I'm being asked to grow each time. It's an opportunity for me to show up even more each time. So asking for things really early, being really specific and explicit, being really honest, being like emotionally honest, being direct. And yes, having the ability to say no. But some of these projects I know I got a lot out of, and I contributed a lot to. So I think there's still a lot I'm working through about growing in those moments that I maybe have regretted in the past, and being like, no, like that didn't go as well as it could have, or that didn't feel right. To continue to be my best self in these situations, because the situations aren't going away. That's like the sad but true part. It's just not. I need to get, my community, my ancestral support, like all these things with me, so that like I'm really rooted and my foundation is so strong, which I am getting better at, even at a very old white institution at Lincoln Center. It's like I had much more community that I utilized this time in some alone moments. I'm like, this is progress. We're not there, but this is progress. And then it's like, where's my like Black theater community? Because it needs balance. Whenever it's like a little bit too imbalanced, it's like, okay, I'm like really, really hungry for like Black plays, Black directors, Black writers. Because it's like, I'm not going to not do that play at this point. That's not like this play I'm in right now was the right decision for me. But these challenges can really chip at my soul. They have chipped at my soul. And now I'm trying to like, again, bring in all that I bring in, and that I know benefits the space. It benefits everybody. But how does it benefit me? Because I have my community, I can call them and they can support me through it when I really do need support. These institutions just can't hold it. They really just can't.
Institutions always, that conversation with them is not always easy to have. So hearing this, it's like, oh, okay, other people have these issues too. Other people deal with them in other ways. But I'm going to flip the script a little bit here and ask you, how do you support yourself in those moments? Like, what's your self-care for when these things do happen? Are you a bubble bath person? Are you a candles person? Are you like, I go outside and I yell at the moon? What feels good for Rebecca in those moments?
Have you been asking people? How do you know my life? I'm sorry.
I knew we were kindred spirits.
The cameras? Yes, we just met, but absolutely a bath person. This last process, and again, it's no shade on the process. Like, again, like I took morning baths before every rehearsal, pretty much. Like I had to really get like nervous system calming stuff in like times of the day that I didn't know that was a thing until it's a thing in my life now. Absolutely, with the candles, because the light on is still just too much. It's like up here in this headspace, but then the candlelight, oils, burning something. Very, very simple, just to be able to like activate the senses to become more present. I will shout out all the teachers. I read Pleasure Activism during this time. I mean, everybody, get your textbook on life. Adrienne Marie Brown, just all the magic available. Just listening to Thich Nhat Hanh right now in these, again, free podcasts. All, with his passing, I was started listening to some of his Dharma talks, and they were just all available. And so now that's just, again, a regular practice of that's, in a Buddhist tradition, it's just the Dharmas, the truth. It's just like, just let it wash over me. Rest is really the only, it's really the
What's
only.
that, Rebecca? What is rest?
Let me tell you, Kandace. Like at any and all times that you can. And then the social bit, right? I'm in a show right now that's 70 minutes. It's a dark comedy, queer comedy. And it's very fun and effervescent. And then, it's fun until it's serious, but then it's still fun. And it's one of the first shows I've ever had that's that short. And we go out after. And it's like, we're coming out of pandemic. This is the first show that this theater has done, LCT3 has done in 2 years. That has been feeding me just unbelievably, just to be connecting with folks, right? Sitting after a play, having a drink, having a meal, being just connecting, right? Because a lot of theater for me was about like, it's that really long thing. And then you go home, like it ends and you're like, I'm so sorry, I gotta go home. Like I gotta catch a train, or like, oh, I gotta protect my voice, or like, oh, that was so serious and intense. And now I have to process it. And like, it's like, I'm just too messed up. But it doesn't all have to be like that. The theater is a place to connect. It's a place, like a reason that we get together. I don't want to waste that. Right. It's so valuable. But yeah, rest too.
I love that phrase. I don't want to waste that connection. Oh, that is.
We came all here, then we were in the dark together, and we cried, and then we went home. And I'm like, no, but now I need you. Now's when I need you.
That's real.
Yeah,
that's real.
Yeah.
Ooh, Ahmed, I need a moment. My God, yeah. Because a lot of people are having that conversation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Coming out of isolation. Yes.
I think in every aspect, I think everyone in this industry is having that conversation, if not collectively, but with themselves. Especially coming off, the 2 years that we've been through with, the pandemic and with all the issues and discussion of race that have come about. I think everybody's having that moment of, okay, what is my place in this industry? Have I been doing too much? Have I been giving too much of myself? Have I been placing my vision, like to what Kandace said earlier, have I been placing my vision in a place to where maybe I shouldn't have placed it? Did I put it in the wrong vessel? Am I taking care of myself? Like just this reorientation of ourselves. And I wanted to ask you, just because it is prevalent. And I think as we've now, I think we did our first performance in September. I think we opened back up with Mother Road and October. And, and it's been, as with many theaters, it's been a rocky reopening. What are your thoughts on the state of the industry at the moment, as far as just where it's at, as far as reopening after the pandemic, and then also as reopening after everything, to go along with what we're talking about, like people just aren't taking what they were taking before the pandemic. They're just not letting institutions treat them any old type of way. Yeah. And, we're seeing where we have this generation that's like, I'm not going to be treated like that. And then we have that old guard that is not recognized yet that there's a generational split and that the world is actually different from how it was operating before the pandemic. I know that was a lot, but just broadly, what are your thoughts on where the industry is right now, coming off of these last 2 years that we've been?
Such a beautiful question and opportunity to reflect. I'll speak first to just how much I think we're in a new age for theater in this pandemic, because I've been sort of referring to it as if it's over. It's completely not. My show is on pause because of COVID, actually. So the model of like, we may have to shut down, and then now we have a week, 3 weeks from now that we come back. I mean, all of this is so different. I can't even fathom for theaters just how hard that is to try to adjust to. As an actor, I had a pretty just a tough time adjusting to like the protocol of testing every day. Okay. But we had to wear masks everywhere, but on stage. And for me, and the freedom and the trying to be as relaxed and, not having mouth tension, and just what we're doing is the opposite of that, right? With the masks. But it's like, we had to do what we had to do. So just like each moment adjusting to like, this is a different way of life, but it's a different way of making theater. We're going to have to continue to adjust. Like, we don't have understudies at LCT3. You're not going to be able to do that anymore in some places. It's just such a shakeup, right? Because like when we got our first actor with COVID, like we had our assistant director who was able to step in to the role for a few, like just wild stuff. You're like, this would never happen, but we've never been in this situation. So I just feel like it's going to continue to be like a learning curve of just like, what is this? What's this space? What is next? The part about the other pandemic, and this, as like people were calling the racial reckoning, I feel like the way that has also changed theater. It's been I'm trying to think of like actual concrete example. I think I'll just speak from like what Blackness for me has always been, which is a higher level of accountability and context. And so the more that we have of that in any of these processes, in any of these institutions, the better. Just the better. It's why, again, when I just, in my experience, would be the only Black person in the room on this piece, felt the weight of bringing in so much that other people could not bring in, right? I'm carrying so much. So if that's spread a little bit more, where people are a little bit more aware of like, oh, we're missing things. There are blind spots. Where's our representation in administration? Oh, there is none. That's a huge problem. What are we doing to, just being held accountable? Because whether it's, we're watching you, or like we see you, or like, just the level of, I just feel like Blackness makes people better. Like that awareness and that context and that accountability makes people better, makes the work better. So that, I think what I'm taking from that sort of a shakeup is, oh, I'm not the only one holding this, unless I'm in a fully like Black room. And there isn't just that one play that has that Black room, right? Or when I speak to something, it's not like it's not the first time that somebody's hearing that, right? They are being watched. So I'm sort of like, hey, where's everybody? But you know, that now I'm a chorus in that voice that's already kind of that's out there, instead of like when you're that one person. And again, speaking to something Kandace said earlier, which is like it can be very hard to have those conversations, and your voice just gets, you know, you get shrunk, right? Or you become a problem, or you become a, but there's so much more, again, collective energy and support. And that's better. That's much, much better when it can get really awkward, really, really awkward, really fast, because it's not, you know, it's not comfortable for the person who thinks they get it to suddenly be like, oh, I don't get it.
Right. Yeah. We often talk about like that label of difficult or, oh, don't speak up too much. And I think that's something I left in my 20s because I hit 30 and all of a sudden it was like, I have a problem with. I need to talk about da da da. And you know what? I don't care about the angry Black woman stereotype because, well, now y'all gonna hear it. We talked about the racial reckoning. You're gonna hear it in your rooms. You're gonna hear it out of your rooms. You're gonna hear it until these things are actually solved, until it's no longer performative activism, until it's we hear you, we see you, we are solving said problems. And that's, I think, the biggest thing I have learned in these last 2 years. Just, you know, the situation with George Floyd happened the week of my 30th birthday. And I was just like, dude, this is not it. This is not it. And to see how so many people in the industry reacted to it, to see how so many theaters who have done harm in this industry reacted specifically, and to watch where some have grown but some have fallen short, I think has been the most eye-opening experience. But as far as the film perspective, I don't really have that perspective. So I'm going to ask you, Rebecca, on what you've witnessed kind of in the film world, and I'll include television in there because we know you everywhere. So what have you seen on the film and television front?
No, I'm not everywhere like that. I don't have enough experience in that industry yet to really be able to comment. It's, I know it's that's, I mean, maybe I could speak to it because I don't have a lot of experience. I have, you know, very few TV credits, and the boxes are smaller. That's one thing I know, right? So when it's like, you know, you're not really fitting in this, you're not really fitting in that, you know, it's like, oh, okay, there's actually less freedom than I already feel in in theater, and that can be pretty challenging. But it's like there's progress. Like there's so many more of us like in these writers' rooms, and so many more projects that are like, oh, like I mean, I know some just brilliant BIPOC, especially women writers right now, but I feel like it's just kind of slow. It's slow, and there are a lot more parameters, and there's a lot more money. So, you know, that changes shit, unfortunately. But yeah, to be like super tied to that very, very high, like, you know, profit and the things that have worked in the past, and, you know, your ability to experiment. I mean, it's just very, very different than what we get to do in the theater. But yeah, no, the theaters are really, I mean, it's a community space. We're not as like, you know, fragmented in terms of how the work is made. So there is so much more opportunity for change. Like like we show up each day and we come into a room, and it's like anything can happen, and we can have any conversation, and the play can reflect things to us, and like people can say shit, and like the more that a room can hold that, the better, which is how I like to direct, which is like we have like community agreements, and we can like, I can help set the tone, but like really we're all like, all of us is welcome. That's how we make this piece. That's how we bring this piece to life. You know, you're not like just this sliver of you and like leave the rest, right? We need our anger. We need our sadness. We need our grief. We need our joy. We really, really need our joy. You know, we need to be able to hold space for each other. And when people can't hold space, it's immediate for me. I don't now overexert myself, right? Like I'm like, yo, this is like part of like the conversation that we should be having, like about my wedding as a Black woman in this play. But if you're not able to hold that, I know immediately, right? I'm now not going to like hurt myself trying to make, I can feel what it feels like if you're able to really hold it, or if you need to move on to the next thing very quickly. It's like, okay, Okay.
Yeah.
How much of this work am I going to be able to do collaboratively? And who are my best collaborators in that? Or how much am I going to need to do solo? Because like people are where they are, right? Are you like available, or is it kind of a, you know? So yeah, it's it's a constant opportunity in theater for me, though.
Yeah.
I appreciate what you said about holding space, because I typically work in the administrative space. It's a space that I've worked in almost my whole time here. Like every once in a while, somebody might think I can be in the play and do something, but mostly the administrative space. But I have just learned this year, and I mean this year in 2022, I have just learned the lesson of like, oh, I've been doing too much.
Uh-huh.
I've been giving too much.
Yeah.
And I want to know if you feel this, that, because I know there's a lot of, like, we all joke about we don't never turn down anything and this, that. But for me,
Right.
it was like, no, you were just taking on too much responsibility of other people's responsibilities. You were putting out too many fires, and you were, and I just literally learned a couple of months ago how to let that go. And I think for us who work in this creative space, we get to doing so much and taking on so many responsibilities, we don't realize that in all the work we're doing, that load could be stifling our actual creativity that we could be spreading out in other places. So I just really appreciate that you said it. Anybody who's watching or listening, like, really take that. Like I said, I've been doing this since high school, so 30-something years, and I just learned that lesson this year. Just learned it.
Congratulations. And yes, like learning right there with you. And I'm sure it's going to be life practice, but like, right. Like I see you, you see me, like I see Kandace, like being a witness to each other in that journey, so that we're not continuing to deplete ourselves. That is huge. That is so huge. And I think this book I referenced, Pleasure Activism, is helpful in thinking about, right, how does anyone sustain activism? How does anyone sustain being of service? What if we enjoyed it was pleasurable to do what we do? So if it doesn't feel good, that's an immediate sign, right? So I'm like, wow, using that as a lens to be like, well, what makes me feel, what do I find most joy doing in this process? Great. Let's go to that. Let's really, really, really do that. Right. What does not feel joyful to be having this conversation with this person? Then I'm not going to have that conversation with that person. Right. Again, just like, what are the things that bring me joy in my life? Great. I have, food that nourishes me, and I'm staying hydrated, and I'm rested, and I'm doing things that feel like, taking care of my hair, and I'm taking care of whatever, all of the things that give me that confidence and that glow, and those things that are pleasurable, the music that that gives me that, so that I can come into those spaces and be able to sustain and create, to exactly the point you were making. I really, really, I think learning to let go of trying to be the educator, the teacher, the savior, putting out fires, when I'm like, no, I'm doing enough. I'm doing enough.
Yeah.
I'm doing enough.
It's funny. It's like a line off of Nas's last album where he starts off the song. He said, "I don't work this hard to be around people I don't like."
Well, on that note,
type of thing. Or once it's said, you're like, I don't know how we were doing anything else.
Right. Right. Rebecca, I don't want to keep you too much longer. I know it is 9:30 where you were at. Yes. Wait a minute. I know it is 9:30 where you were at, so we kind of want to wrap this thing up. Kandace, do you have any closing thoughts or questions you want to pose to Rebecca?
Yeah, actually, I'm a big believer in knowing what people are doing next and knowing what pieces they're involved in that bring them joy. So before you tell us what you're doing next, I want you to tell us what your favorite project to date has been.
So
for
good at
any
this.
reason.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna go with the last piece I did. I feel like my favorite changes, but right now it's this piece. It was called is Edward Snowden's Single. It was downtown small theater in Greenwich Village, and I played like 14 characters. It's one of my favorite things to do is just be like literally changing hats every 2 seconds. And it was such a satisfying experience. It's described as a one-woman show between 2 women, and me and my just castmate, we just fell in love with each other. Like truly that symbiotic magic that happens where you're like, you have to finish each other's sentences and you're just doing bits and doing jokes and, you know, pulling characters and all, you know, just doing all this stuff. It's like the theaterist theater. It was so joyful. The theateristy theater that you could do, right? Just like what an actor is, what an actor does, right? Voices and bodies. And I'm a 5-year-old now. I'm a 70-year-old Jewish woman. Like these are like, I'm just like, you know, joyful. I'm this man who's, you know, we're doing all this crazy stuff. So fun.
That title alone sold me, but then you told me more, and I was even more excited.
It's a really fun play.
Oh yeah, you had me at the title.
I mean, she's so smart, and it's really fun. And Edward Snowden shows up. He's also there's a puppet. I mean, there's
that theater magic right there. Like
right. There's, you know, what can we do? What and like how did that happen? And you're just like, I don't know what's happening, but it's happening. What I'm doing next. So I have 1 more week of this show at the wedding. And then I have 2 of my own pieces, which are going to be end of May.
See,
children! Love it. Thank you for that blessing. I have a piece called The Non-Monologues, which is interviews I did with women about non-monogamy in one of my Jewish fellowships. So it has an interesting lens on sort of like our foremothers and just rewriting the narrative on monogamy, like kind of from Eve. So that's a piece that will be at the end of this month, and the next one is an adaptation through another fellowship I'm in of an old Yiddish play called The Dybbuk, which is the Yiddish word for dead soul. So it's about a young woman on her birth. And so I'm using, you know, Black Jewish actors. Like, you know, I'm trying to, you know, turn this whole thing out. So it's a young woman, Tatiana Wexler is a beautiful Black Jewish actress who played it for me in this reading. And it's her wedding day and she gets possessed by a spirit. And in my telling of it, it's the spirit of Elijah McClain. And Elijah in Judaism has this whole Eliyahu at Passover, which we just had, is who you keep the door open for. It's sort of the Messiah. So there's all these resonances inside of it. And I'm just trying to live inside of this really old, really ancient play in this modern context and have these conversations about justice and about love and about, you know, bodies and there's that darkness. But it's really a love story. It's kind of like 2 people that can't be with each other. Sort of the Romeo and Juliet. So we're gonna have a reading of that. And I'll be teaching a little bit in July, teaching creative writing in Ireland. So that's what's coming up. Oh, wow. It's always all over.
Yeah, you busy. You real busy. But Ahmed, are you thinking what I'm thinking?
What are you thinking? Tell me. Probably.
I'm thinking that we need to make sure Rebecca comes in next year for the Jewish Arts Festival because those scripts sound amazing.
Absolutely.
And,
absolutely.
Yeah, I want to see those live and in the flesh. I might just need to fly out, you know.
Yes.
Those are too good.
Oh, I love this.
I'm super intrigued by
She kept talking and I was like, I know who I'm calling after this. Yeah.
Let's go.
We know somebody.
Oh, it's going to be a party. Oh, this is going to, yes, let's go. Let's make all the connections. This is what I,
and it's hot out here. So you'll be really warm and comfy.
Yeah, hot, dry. You'll be good.
No sweater. Like I'm ready. I'm so ready. It's so cold out here, even now in the spring. Please help me.
Oh yeah, no, you'll be hearing from us. Believe that.
That would be incredible, though, to be in person, just be incredible. But yes, let's make this intersectional journey. Let's do it.
We're gonna make it happen.
Yes.
Rebecca, let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. Again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate it. And you're going to hear from us because we're going to want you not only come back for that, but we're going to want you to come back here again because we just touched the surface of so many things. And like there's so many roads we can go down with this conversation. So please, we're going to invite you to come back and talk with us again.
Thank
you. We know somebody. We're going to talk a little something about this Jewish Arts Festival for next year. See if we can't get you involved.
Let's do it.
Has to.
Have some work for y'all. Yes.
Everybody, please, to keep up with Rebecca, head over to her website, RebeccaSmallButFrank.com. You get all her links to her Twitter, her Instagram, and see everything she's got going on with the acting, the writing, the directing, to catch up with her schedule. And again, and I know y'all going to keep up with Kandace. Like I said, you're going to see her all around town here in San Diego.
That's what I need. That's what I need to keep up with. Please.
Don't let her fool you, Rebecca. Kandace be doing all the things.
I am not fooled. Not for a second.
Ahmed be lying, but Ahmed's lying too because he be acting because I directed him in a show and he was phenomenal.
Yes. I need all of the information. I need all of the dates. I need all of it.
We'll talk.
Y'all are special.
Yeah. We'll talk. Really. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us. And everybody, if you're watching this, if you didn't catch all this live, as soon as I end this broadcast, it will be automatically replaying on San Diego Repertory Theater's Facebook page and on our YouTube page. It'll most likely end up on La Jolla Playhouse's YouTube page in a couple of days. And I won't do it tonight because I got to run a rehearsal, but tomorrow I will have it up on our Spotify and Anchor podcast. So you'll be able to listen to this. Rebecca, Kandace, thank you so much. Rebecca, we are going to have you back, and we're going to get you here in town for this Jewish Arts Festival.
Let's do it. Oh, thank you both. It was an absolute pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you. And
everybody, lovely meeting you.
Visit sdrep.org, visit lajollaplayhouse.org, and visit theoldglobe.org because all of us have new productions getting ready to start at the end of this month. So please check out what we got going on. Again, Rebecca, thank you so much. We appreciate you, and we're going to have you back. And Kandace, I'll see you around the office at some point.
I'll see you in the office.
Everybody,
it was nice being Jacole for a day.
Everybody, be good. Have a good one, and thank you for listening. We'll talk to you later.
Bye. Bye, baby.
All right, y'all.
Good night.